Now Trump is a man of his word. He has done exactly what he said he would. 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. China has also come under his radar, but for now, he's only imposing a 10% tariff on Chinese import. Still, he has started to flex his power. So now, let's discuss this in this video. As you guys are aware, Trump is very upset with Canada and Mexico regarding their uneven trade balance with the US. They sell a lot of things to the US, but when it comes to buying from the US, they just turn their faces away. This is a huge concern for the US, especially since the national debt is at an all-time high and increasing rapidly. The stock market is also crashing due to the development of Chinese companies like DeepSeek. In general, there are many problems, but apart from those, there is a serious issue of fentanyl-like drugs being consumed by US citizens. This is becoming a huge headache for the US government. Young people in the US are consuming a lot of drugs and destroying their lives. Many families have already been ruined, and this is not something that happened suddenly, it's been a problem for decades. Even the current US Vice President, J.D. Vance, had his mother affected by the drug issue. She is no longer in this beautiful world, but it's a painful reality. Drugs are a big issue in the US. Since Trump feels the root cause of this drug problem is their neighboring countries, here's the logic. If these drugs were being produced in the US, by now, the people involved would have faced serious consequences. The US has many secret agencies like the FBI and various other departments that could easily handle this. In the US, police shoot first and ask questions later. Doing that in the US is a high-risk move. Since the drugs are not being produced in the US, it's clear they're being brought from somewhere else. The US is surrounded by oceans on both sides, so it's evident that these drugs are either coming from Canada or Mexico. And yes, it's true that large-scale drug trafficking is happening from Canada and Mexico. Mexico has always been a bit of a hostile nation, and Canada, under Justin Trudeau and previous governments, has supported an open border policy, which allowed a lot of negative elements to enter the country. With the open border policy, Canada didn't hold back on giving out citizenship either. As a result, while good people have come to Canada, there's also been an influx of individuals only interested in money. They have formed groups that are involved in human trafficking, drug smuggling, and many other illicit activities between Canada and the US. So, Trump simply took action. He imposed a huge tariff on Canada and Mexico until they make efforts to reduce or eliminate the flow of drugs from their countries to the US. Here's what Trump posted on his Truth Social platform. I have implemented a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, and a 10% tariff on China. This was done to prevent illegal immigration and deadly drugs from these nations coming to the US. In his next post, he wrote, "The US doesn't need anything that Canada has to offer. The US is subsidizing Canada. Without US subsidies, Canada could cease to exist." And again the 51st state warning. Can you imagine? Canada is the largest trading partner of the US, with a record trade balance of more than $900 billion. Mexico is also the second largest trading partner, with a trade balance of over $850 billion. Together, the US, Mexico, and Canada have a trade balance of around $1.8 trillion. This is great for Mexico and Canada, but the US gets nothing in this deal. The US is always at a loss. Now that Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, this means that anything Canada and Mexico sell to the US will become more expensive. For example, let's say a high-quality Canadian-made shoe costs $100. After the tariff, the price will go up to $125. This will encourage people who had a budget of $100 for shoes to buy American-made shoes instead, because they will be cheaper. This will help boost the US GDP, increase respect for US products among the public, and reduce dependence on Canada. Over time, the US will become a more powerful country by reducing reliance on its neighbors. What's surprising is that Trump has also imposed a 10% tariff on Canada's energy imports. This shows that Trump is willing to take things head-on. He is prepared to use any power necessary, regardless of whether the results favor the US or not. Trump just wants to show the world the strength of the US. This has literally brought Justin Trudeau to tears. Well, this was bound to happen. The way Trudeau and Canada were mocking the US and Trump, sometimes saying they would cut energy supplies, other times criticizing Kamala Harris for supposedly setting women back, has now come back to bite them. Trudeau is realizing he made a huge mistake. Canada is now in a very tough situation, and Canadians will suffer a lot as a result. But still, Canadians are very patriotic. Even if they're not happy with Justin Trudeau, they've united behind him during this difficult time. This is a sign of a very developed nation where people come together during times of hardship and forget their differences. Justin Trudeau also held a press conference after Trump imposed the tariff on Canada. In his speech, he literally urged Canadians not to buy any products made in the US. He called for a boycott of US goods and encouraged Canadians to explore their own beautiful country, their national parks, historical sites, and tourist destinations, and avoid traveling to the US for summer vacations or holidays. This speech went viral in Canada.
And now is also the time to choose Canada. There are many ways for you to do your part. It might mean checking the labels at the supermarket and picking Canadian-made products. It might mean opting for Canadian rye over Kentucky bourbon, or foregoing Florida orange juice altogether. It might mean changing your summer vacation plans to stay here in Canada and explore the many national and provincial parks, historical sites, and tourist destinations our great country has to offer.
And it's been widely supported by Canadians because now it's a matter of national pride. Canadians are checking labels to see whether something is made in Canada or the US. Justin Trudeau has also urged Canadians to stand together, and in response to the 25% US tariff, Trudeau slapped a 25% retaliatory tariff on US goods. Mexico, in turn, also imposed a 25% tariff on US goods, and China has responded by accusing the US of violating World Trade Organization laws. So, all nations are getting more aggressive with each other, but as the US is a superpower with the dollar as the world's reserve currency, it has a clear advantage here. Mexico's currency is falling, China's currency is dipping, and the Canadian dollar is sinking to a 22-year low against the US dollar. So clearly, a new trade war has begun, and it's going to impact the entire world. Europe, Asia, the Middle East, all the big players are concerned, because Trump is volatile when it comes to imposing tariff. But for now, Mexico and Canada will feel the brunt of the 25% tariff. For the next 4 years, these nations will unfortunately suffer a lot. And the 25% tariff is just the beginning. Trump might increase it to 40% or even 60% on Canada and Mexico. So, the next 4 years are going to be very chaotic. Also, in this video, I didn't talk much about China because China is a very different country. It's a powerhouse in its own right, and it has the ability to absorb US tariff. So, China deserves a dedicated video to fully discuss its role and how it's handling the situation with the US tariff. We'll save that for another time, but make no mistake, China is a major player in this global economic game. So, the next 4 years are going to be very chaotic.